You're here because you need help on defense, and I'm about to show you the basics you need to know. And make sure to subscribe with the bell icon on so that you're up to date with all the latest and best Madden tips all year long to help your game. So the first thing you want to be mindful of when playing defense in Madden is that you want to match your personnel with the offense. So when the offense picks a play, whether you're playing online or even playing the computer, a little box will pop up on the screen and it'll tell you your opponent's personnel. It might say 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back, and this should determine what formation you come out in. So in your playbook, you're going to either have a 4-3 set of plays or a 3-4 set of plays. Some playbooks, like the one I'm in, has both, which is the Chiefs playbook. But these 2 formations are going to be predominantly used for when your opponent comes out in 2 receivers or less, because typically that means they're going to be under center. They're more likely to be running the ball. So you want to make sure you're in one of these 2 sets because you have more linebackers on the field, more bodies in the box to help against the run. Now, if they come out in 3 receivers or more, that's when you start looking at things like big nickel, different nickel formations in general, dime, and dollar. Now, any formation that has the word nickel in it means you're going to have 3 cornerbacks on the field. So if they have 3 receivers, you want 3 cornerbacks because you kind of want to match speed on speed. If they have 4 receivers or more, typically you're going to want to look at dime and dollar because these are going to have 4 cornerbacks on the field. However, even if they come out in a 3 receiver set, that doesn't mean you can't use dime or dollar. Maybe they have a really good tight end like a Travis Kelce, so you'd rather have that 4th cornerback on the field to match up with him. You could use dime or dollar. Now right here, let's show an example. Our opponents came out in a 3 receiver set, so we came out in a nickel, 2-man under, straight man defense. The reason you want to come out in a nickel and not a 3-4 or a 4-3, because if you did, this guy right here on the slot, instead of being a cornerback, he would be a linebacker. He'd be lined up more inside like this, so you'd have a speed mismatch. You'd have a receiver on a linebacker, and that's no good. You want to be able to match speed on speed so that when they're running out on their routes, he just actually got cooked right there, but you get the idea. You'd rather have somebody that's able to match up with him better than a linebacker. And even if you're playing a zone defense, this still applies because once a receiver gets in the open field, you still want more speed on the field to be able to run them down. So right here, for example, the offense came out with 1 receiver, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs. We wouldn't want to be in a nickel, a dime, or a dollar versus this because we don't want all those extra secondary players on the field. We want linebackers and defensive linemen on the field because there's a good chance they're going to be running the ball, and even if they pass, linebackers typically can match up better with tight ends than they would versus a receiver, so you're going to be okay. But if they're in a formation like this, they're likely running the ball, and this will help you wrap them up and limit their yards. Really quickly before we continue on, I do want to let you know that I have a Patreon page where I post exclusive high-level Madden tips and strategies, so once you get the basics down and you want to dominate all of your opponents, you can check out that page. The link is below in the pinned comment. Now let's talk about defensive line adjustments. If you press left on the D-pad, this is going to bring up your D-line adjustments in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Now you can see on the left joystick, you have the option to spread your defense by pressing it up. You can shift them to the right. You can shift them to the left. You can even pinch them down. So for example, if you're playing somebody that might be running the ball a lot out of shotgun, let's say, or even if it's under center, if they're running a lot of dives and stuff up the middle, you might want to pinch your D-line just to give them a little bit better of a chance to kind of mug up the holes. Now, if you press left on the D-pad, on the right joystick, you have point of attack options. So you can select slant outside, which is up on the right stick. And what this does is you can see the defensive line all attacks to the outside. This is a good tactic if you think they're passing. Usually outside rush frees them up a little bit better. But you could also slant them to the left, to the right, or to the inside. Again, if you think they're running, maybe you would pinch your D-line and then also slant them to the inside. This is going to allow them to attack more so where the running back would be getting the ball. So you have all of those different options. Now, if you want to adjust your linebackers, you're going to press right on the D-pad and you're going to have a lot of similar adjustments with the left stick. You can spread them, you could shift them left, you could shift them to the right, you could pinch them, you can do all these different things, right? If you're expecting some heavy action to the right, you might want to shift them right. Usually, I don't shift my linebackers too much. I usually kind of just leave them where they are, but if you want to shift them in different ways, you can. Now, again, pulling up right on the D-pad, you can see on the right stick, you have some different options. If you want to drop all of your linebackers into a hook zone, you can press up on the right stick, and now you've got them in these hook curls. If you want to blitz them all, you can press down on the right stick. Let's say you just want to send kind of a heavy blitz. You want to blitz some extra guys. You can blitz them like that. And if you want to just blitz either one of your linebackers on the outside, you can go left on the right stick to blitz the left outside linebacker, or right on the right stick to just blitz the right outside linebacker. You have those options. Now to adjust your secondary, you want to press the Y or triangle button, and then you're going to have all of these options in the bottom left corner. So let's say you don't want to give up a big play. It's the last play before half or at the end of the game or close to the end of the game. They need to get down the field. You just don't want to give up any big plays. You can press Y or triangle and then up on the left stick. This is going to give cushion. It's going to back them up and help them out. And now if you want to make sure they're going to play even more so over the top, you can press Y or triangle up on the right stick. That's going to shade them over top. So it's going to really help them not get beat deep. Let's say you want to press your defense. You can press Y or triangle down on the left stick. That's going to press them and get them up in the faces of the receivers. If you want to shade them to the inside, you would press left on the right stick. If you want to shade them to the outside because you're worried about a corner route going to the sideline, you can press right on the right stick. If you want to shade them underneath so that they're more aggressive underneath, you press down on the right stick. You have all these different ways to align them and to shade them in different ways. Another useful way to use shading is when you're playing zone defense as well. Now, of course, you could shade inside or outside if you're worried about inside routes or outside routes. You could always shade over top if you're just worried about streaks and things like that. But a really, really underrated adjustment is shading underneath in zone coverage, and let me show you why. So right here, I'm just going to play a standard cover 3 with no shading, and I want to show you what happens. These underneath routes, like drag routes or little in routes, they get underneath the zone and they pick up these easy 5-6 yards, and people always struggle to stop them. Flat routes also usually get open versus this as well. Now, if you press Y or triangle and then shade underneath on the right stick, you can see now those purple zones have turned to hard flats, but also the 2 hook curls in the middle of the field, they're going to play more aggressive underneath as well. So now if we try to throw these same routes, you can see they're all over it. They're knocking the ball out, and a lot of times they'll even get interceptions. You can also manually adjust players on the field. So this linebacker right here, he's in a 3 receiver hook zone, but I have different things I can adjust him to by pressing A or X once I'm on him, and you can see in the bottom left corner, you have all of these different options. You could put him in a middle third over the middle of the field, which we're not going to do that in this case, but it's just an option. I can put him into a QB spy if I'm worried about a fast quarterback. I could put him into a curl flat if I want him to kind of drop back to this area of the field. I can put him into a hard flat if I want him to drop into the hard flat. I can do all these different options with him, and you can do this with any player on the field. You can adjust any of these players however you see fit. Every player you get on when you press A or X is going to have a bunch of different options of stuff that you can put them in. Now, typically I like to leave the cornerbacks on the outside alone. For example, this guy right here, yes, I can put him into a cloud flat, but we're playing a cover 1 right now, so if he's on a streak and we don't get good pass rush, that's going to be a touchdown. So I typically will not mess with those guys, especially if you're more of a beginner. Just adjust the linebackers to give extra help. So right here, let's say the running back has been in the block a lot. Your opponent has not been sending the running back out. Then you know you don't really need this guy manned up on him. So instead, maybe you want to drop him into a hard flat over here just to help in the flats, or you want to drop him into a curl flat to kind of help bracket that outside receiver depending on what route he might run. Or it's a fast QB and you say, you know what, I'd rather have the QB spy here. That's usually how I like to adjust. Or you can kind of do it on the D line. If you want a little extra help, you can drop one of the defensive linemen back into coverage as well, just to kind of drop more guys back and confuse your opponent. But in terms of like outside cornerbacks, I would leave them alone and just kind of leave them in their assignment because you don't want to mess up and give up a deep touchdown. Here's a very important tip everybody needs to know, and I get asked about it a lot. How do you stop the scrambling QB? One thing you can do is put your outside pass rushers into a QB contain by tapping the RB or R1 button twice. 1, 2. Now, we do that, you can see our outside rushers are in a contain assignment. So if we try to scramble outside at any point, they're holding their end, they're playing the edge, and they're not going to let you get out the pocket. You could also use the QB spy assignment we just talked about. Get on a fast enough player, press A or X, left on the right stick. Now they're in a QB spy. So even somehow if you can break the pocket, right? I'm going to try to set up the D line here to make it easy for me to kind of get outside the pocket, try to double team the end so I can get out the pocket. You can see that spy is going to follow now, and he's there. He might let us get a couple yards, but he's going to limit us. Now let's talk about the different styles of coverage. So you have a cover 3, which is probably the most popular zone defense. It's going to keep a lot of stuff in front of you. It's not usually going to let too much stuff beat you deep. It's going to be a little weak in the flats and in the seams, but again, if you want to take away the flats, you could just shade it underneath like I showed you. The seams are just going to be an area that is always going to be weak against a cover 3, but this is usually a very safe defense to run every down and kind of keep everything mostly in front of you. Same with the cover 2. This is probably the other most popular zone style coverage. It's going to keep a lot of stuff in front of it as well and kind of rally down. It's going to be a little bit better in the flats. It's going to be better in the short underneath, but there are some holes a little deeper down the field if your opponent has time to pass. But with the pass rush in Madden being better, usually the pass rush can get home more consistently before they have time to take those deep shots. Then you've got cover 2 man, probably the safest thing to run. Man defense has become a lot better in Madden. This has everybody manned up and accounted for, and it has 2 deep zones, so it's very hard to beat this deep down the field, and it's very hard to get guys open consistently versus it, especially if you have a good defensive line. Then you've got cover 1 man, which is a little bit trickier than cover 2 man because you have that yellow zone sitting in the middle, which plays a robber role. So this actually does a better job at defending the middle of the field than a regular man coverage, and you still have 1 deep safety, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about getting beat deep. This one's a little riskier than cover 2 man, but versus a lot of people, they'll find it harder to actually pass against this. And then you've got cover 4, which can actually be really, really good. Cover 4 is a defense a lot of people just struggle with. This is kind of a set it and forget it defense. You don't have to change too much. The only thing you could maybe opt to do is shade underneath, which again is wire triangle down on the right stick, just to protect the flats better. But if you come out in a cover 4 like this every play with 8 guys in coverage, you'll find that a lot of people just simply don't know how to beat it because it's very hard to beat deep. It's hard to beat into the flats if you shade down. You'll just typically find that a lot of people will just struggle against this, so it's something worth looking into. Now, when you want to bring pressure as a beginner, the best thing to look to is a man blitz. So if we click here in man blitz, what you want to do is you want to find plays where you have 6 guys rushing. You can tell who's rushing because they'll have a red arrow, and most of these are going to have 6. Some will even have 7, but that's a little riskier. So right here, we're going to pick the nickel over Storm Brave, for example, because it has 6 guys rushing. And the thing with this is that you don't have to make any adjustments. Typically, you can either get on the D line if you're not comfortable usering, or you're going to want to manually user the guy that's on the running back. If the running back goes out on his route, you're going to want to take him. This is a simple way to get pressure versus people that just don't block extra guys. If they're only blocking their 5 offensive linemen, by bringing 6 rushers, you have a guy free. You have a numbers advantage. So any man blitz with 6 guys rushing is going to get pretty quick pressure if the opponent does not block anybody else. This is an easy way to get to the QB. Now let's talk about usering a guy in coverage. So typically you're going to want to user one of the linebackers. If you're in a man defense, you're going to usually user the guy that's on the running back and take him, or you can user one of the safeties, for example. So if we're in a cover 1, we can user the safety, or we could user the 3 rec zone right here. We don't want to use her like a cornerback or something because that's just too risky. We want to stay over the middle and defend the quick, easy routes. But in zone, just take one of the linebackers that's in a zone over the middle. And basically, if you're a beginner, just try to take one route away. So for example, if somebody just likes to throw a slant route over and over, all you want to do is just try to sit there and take that away. Just don't let them have that easy throw and then the pass rush should get home. If you don't do that, they could simply throw that route every play and the computer usually will not do a great job at defending it. You don't have to be great. Just if you know it's coming, just stand there and try to run with it. You don't have to try to be a super user and take every single route away at one time. That's when you get more advanced. But in the beginning, just try to take away the one route you know they want to throw, whether it's a slant or a drag every play, or it's a quick streak to the tight end maybe. If I know they want to throw a quick streak to the tight end, I'm standing here. So when they throw it, now I can click the Y or triangle button, get an interception, and go the other way. You're going to make mistakes at first when you're using, but that's just kind of the learning process you have to go through. You have to take your lumps, but if you can just get better at taking the one main guy away that your opponent wants to throw, because everybody has the main guy they want to throw to, you will get a ton more stops in Madden. Now that you've learned the defensive basics, you're halfway there. Now you need to learn how to pass on offense so that you can score once you get your stops, and you can watch that video right here on the screen.